They say it takes years to master a language. I had 4 months. No teachers, no classrooms, just me, a secondhand notebook, and a stubborn little dream that wouldn't let go. I've always loved the sound of words. Even before I knew what they meant, I'd play them over in my head like a song you can't stop humming. When I was little, I'd sit on our worn-out couch in the living room, the one with the sun-faded cushions and that squeaky spring you couldn't sit on without falling halfway into the couch, and watch music videos in English. I'd try to sing along, not with real words, at least not real to me, more like sound shapes. My mouth would copy whatever I thought I heard, shalafuena. My brothers would crack up. One time, my older brother Miguel filmed me on his old Nokia phone and showed the whole family during dinner. I wanted to throw a tortilla at his face. We grew up in El Paso, Texas, right near the border, a place where the air smells like dust and warm tortillas, where Spanish and English float together in the same conversation without anyone thinking twice about it. In our house, though, Spanish ruled. My parents came from a small town in Mexico before I was born. Dad worked in construction, Mom in a bakery, and while they both knew English, just enough for bills, doctor visits, and store trips, it wasn't the language of home. Home was coffee brewing in the mornings while Mom hummed old rancheras. It was Dad coming in from work with dusty boots and saying, "¿Qué hay de cenar?" It was my little cousins running through the hallway yelling, "Pérame," when we played hide and seek. English was outside. English was the shiny posters at Walmart, the serious-looking people on the evening news, the cashier at Target who spoke so fast I'd just nod, smile, and hand over money, hoping I wasn't agreeing to something weird. At school, I spoke English when I had to, but I didn't live in it. I'd answer the teacher's questions, but my mind always worked in Spanish first, then translated. That little delay made me quiet. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing, so I said less. But I still remember the first time English made me feel something. I was maybe 15, flipping through TV channels one lazy Saturday when I landed on this old movie. The characters were sitting on a porch, talking about life, and I couldn't understand half of it. But there was this moment. One character looked at the other and said something softly, almost like a secret. I had no idea what the words meant, and yet I felt them. Like the tone carried its own kind of meaning. That stuck with me. I wanted to get it, not just guess from body language, but really know the words, the way they made sense together. Still, it stayed a quiet want for years. I never really told anyone, "Hey, I want to master English." It felt silly, like I was already living in the US. Shouldn't I already know it well? Then came the tourist couple. It was a hot day in July, the kind where the air feels thick and your shirt sticks to your back. I was helping at my aunt's bakery, slicing pan dulce and refilling the pastry case, when this couple walked in. Blonde hair, sunburned cheeks, bright backpacks. They smiled, and the man said, "Excuse me, could you tell us where the plaza is?" I froze. I knew the plaza. I'd been there 100 times. But in that moment, every English word in my head went into hiding. Wait, I stammered, waving my hand in the general direction of the street like I was shooing a fly. They smiled politely, said thanks, and left. The second they walked out, I felt my cheeks burning. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was frustration. I knew I could have answered them if my brain had just cooperated. After that day, the want in me started turning into a need. It still wasn't urgent. I didn't need English to survive. My job at the store was mostly in Spanish. My friends spoke Spanish. Netflix had Spanish audio. But something about that bakery moment wouldn't leave me alone. Then, one night in December, I was scrolling through TikTok in bed. The room was dark except for the light from my phone. My hair was a mess, my blanket twisted around me, and my thumb was doing its usual half-asleep scrolling. That's when I saw her. A girl, maybe 21, dark hair tied in a messy bun, sitting at her desk with a cup of coffee. She said, "I learned English in 4 months, and here's how." She wasn't a teacher. She didn't speak perfectly, but she was confident. She talked with her hands, laughed at her own mistakes, and kept saying, "If I can do it, you can do it." I must have watched that video 3 times. When it ended, I just stared at my ceiling in the dark and thought, why not me? I grabbed my phone, opened the Notes app, and typed, 4 months, no excuses. That first week was chaos. I didn't have a plan. I just attacked English from every direction. Downloaded Duolingo, watched YouTube lessons, wrote random words in a little notebook I carried everywhere. I'd stand in the kitchen, holding my coffee, saying to myself, I am drinking coffee. The coffee is hot. I like coffee. One morning, my mom walked by, squinted at me, and said, "Estás bien?" I laughed so hard I almost spilled my cup. By the second week, my notebook was full of words. Overwhelmed, grocery cart, chili, appointment. I loved the way some of them felt in my mouth. Chili was my favorite. It sounded like a tiny bell. But some nights, lying in bed, I'd think, who am I kidding? People spend years learning English. 4 months? That's crazy. Maybe I just embarrassed myself. Still, something in me, stubborn or hopeful, I'm not sure which, kept saying, try. Just try. And so I did. By the end of that first month, something subtle changed. Words stopped feeling like strangers. I'd catch a phrase in a movie and think, oh, I know that. I'd hear someone say, by the way, at the store and realize, hey, I understood that without translating. It was small, but every time it happened, my heart did this little leap. Like maybe, just maybe, this crazy idea wasn't so crazy after all. By the time I hit the second month, I think everyone around me had figured out that I was the English girl now. Not the cool kind of English girl, like someone who spends summers in London sipping tea, but the kind who talks to herself in supermarket aisles. I remember one day at Walmart, I was picking apples. I held one up, and under my breath I whispered, "These apples are fresh." Like I was filming a cooking show for an audience of exactly one. Me. Of course, my neighbor Mrs. Ramirez happened to be walking by. She gave me a curious look. I panicked, shoved the apple in my cart, and pretended to check my phone. Smooth. But that's the thing about learning a language. It's not something you can hide. At least, not if you want to get better. By now, my mornings had a routine. Before I even rolled out of bed, I'd grab my phone, put in my earphones, and start my day with some English. Sometimes it was a grammar lesson on YouTube. Sometimes a random vlog about someone's morning skincare routine, which I had zero interest in, but hey, they were speaking English, and that's what mattered. And then came the sticky notes. Oh my God, the sticky notes. I went a little overboard. Mirror, lamp, door, blanket, ceiling. Every object in my room had a neon label. My brother Diego hated it. "Why is there a sign on the toaster that says toaster?" he groaned one morning. "So I can remember it?" I said. "You're never gonna forget the word toaster." "Maybe not now," I shrugged. "But one day I might need it." He shook his head like I was hopeless, but I could tell he was secretly amused. Of course, it wasn't all cute moments. Some days, my brain felt like it was filled with wet cement. I'd be watching a video, and the words would just slide right past me. No meaning, no connection. And then there were the blank mind moments. Like the time I went to this cozy little cafe downtown, the kind with warm yellow lights and the smell of fresh croissants. I decided it was the perfect place to practice. I stood in line rehearsing in my head, "I'd like a small coffee, please. I'd like a small coffee, please." When I got to the counter, the barista, a friendly guy with a beanie and freckles, smiled and said, "What can I get for you?" My brain froze. Completely. One coffee? Small. Please? I blurted out like I'd learned English 5 minutes earlier. He didn't laugh, but I could feel my cheeks burning. I took my cup, mumbled thanks, and sat by the window, staring at the foam until it went cold. I almost didn't come back from that one. That little voice in my head, the one that loves to ruin things, whispered, "See, this is why you'll never really get it." But then something unexpected happened. That weekend, I joined a free English conversation group I'd found on Facebook. It was just a Zoom call with maybe a dozen people, all from different countries. Brazil, Vietnam, Morocco, Turkey, you name it. Everyone had accents. Everyone stumbled, and everyone was trying. The first time I actually understood an entire question without saying, "Sorry, can you repeat?" felt like magic. The teacher, a woman named Karen with this warm, patient voice, asked, "What's your favorite season and why?" And I just answered. No script, no panic. "I like autumn because it feels calm, and the air smells nice." It wasn't perfect. My autumn came out more like autumn, and I forgot the word for leaves, so I just said, "The trees change color." But I was speaking, and they understood me. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Today, I talked in English, for real." From then on, I started experimenting more. I tried something called shadowing, which is basically listening to someone speak and copying them as closely as possible. I'd sit in my room, repeating after YouTubers like I was their slightly delayed echo. At first, it was a mess. I'd trip over words, mumble through half the sentence, and sometimes accidentally say completely different things. But little by little, I caught the rhythm. My tongue started moving faster, my mouth shaping sounds it had never made before. By month 3, I wasn't just studying English anymore. I was living in it. I switched my phone and laptop to English. I wrote my grocery list in English, which led to me buying cilantro instead of parsley one time, but that's another story. I even started dreaming in English occasionally. One dream was me at a sandwich shop asking, "Do you want a sandwich?" over and over, which probably means my subconscious was just hungry. But still, progress is progress. Then came the moment that changed everything for me. One rainy Friday night, I put on The Devil Wears Prada. I'd seen it 100 times, always with Spanish subtitles. This time, no subtitles. Just me, my cup of tea, and the challenge. At first, my brain wanted to panic, but then I realized I was following along. I laughed at the jokes. I caught the sarcasm. I even noticed little lines I'd never understood before. When the credits rolled, I sat there grinning like a fool. I'd just watched a whole movie in English and got it. That's when I knew I could finish this 4-month promise. I wasn't fluent yet. Not like in the movies, but I could talk, I could listen, and for the first time, I felt like English wasn't a wall between me and the world. It was a door, and I was just about to find out where it could lead. I had just finished my 4th month when life decided to pull one of those plot twist moments. It was a Wednesday afternoon, late enough in the day that the sun was starting to slip behind the houses. I was in my room folding laundry, the boring kind of folding where you just mindlessly match socks and smooth out shirts, when my phone buzzed on the dresser. It was a text from my cousin Sophia. "Hey, there's a position opening at my office. Pays well. You'd be perfect for it." I smiled at my phone, thinking she was just being nice. I had a part-time job already. I wasn't looking for anything new. But then I scrolled down and saw her second message. "You'd need to speak English every day." I froze. 4 months ago, that would have been an automatic nope. I'd have thought, why would I even embarrass myself like that? But now, I just stood there with my hands still holding a half-folded towel, feeling this strange mix of nerves and curiosity. My brain whispered, "You can do this." My stomach whispered, "Are you insane?" I decided to at least try. The interview was set for the following Monday. In English. Entirely in English. I spent the whole weekend practicing. I rehearsed answering, "Tell me about yourself," until my throat felt dry. I stood in front of my mirror, fixing my hair, pretending it was the interviewer. Sometimes I'd make a face at myself mid-sentence, like, "Wow, that sounded awful," and start over. Monday morning came faster than I wanted. I pulled on my one professional blouse, pale blue, with sleeves that were just a little too long, and a pair of black pants that I ironed twice because I was convinced they looked wrinkled. The office was bright and smelled faintly of coffee and lemon cleaner. Sophia greeted me at the door with a quick hug. "You got this," she whispered. And then I was sitting in front of two people, a woman with sharp glasses and a man with a kind smile, and they were speaking English at me. Not slow, not overly careful, just normal. The first few minutes I felt my pulse in my ears, but then something happened. I started answering. Not perfectly. I still paused to think. I still searched for the right words. But I was speaking. I even made them laugh when I said, "If you hire me, you also get free Spanish lessons. That's a bonus." When it was over, I shook their hands and walked out into the hallway with Sophia. My knees were a little shaky, but I wasn't thinking, "I messed that up." I was thinking, I actually did it. 2 days later, my phone lit up with her name. "You got it," she said, just like that. I sat down on the edge of my bed, still holding my phone, and stared at the floor. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or call my mom. I did all three in that order. That's when it hit me. English had stopped being a someday project and had become the reason I was walking into a brand new job. And it didn't stop there. In the months that followed, English wove itself into every part of my life. One afternoon, I helped a lost tourist couple find their hotel. They were so relieved they offered to buy me coffee. Another time, I made a friend online from Canada, and we stayed up until midnight talking about books. I joined a book club where we read in English and argued politely about endings. Even my mom started getting in on it. One evening, I wrote "Have a nice day" on a little card and practiced saying it with her. The first time she used it at the bakery, she came home grinning like a teenager. "They smiled at me," she said, like she'd just discovered a new superpower. Looking back, I realized something I wish I'd understood sooner. The best time to learn something is before you need it. When I started, I didn't have a boss breathing down my neck. I didn't have a trip planned. I didn't have to pass a test. I just had a dream and a little stubbornness. By the time life did hand me a reason, I was ready. Not because I was gifted, not because I had some secret talent, but because I'd shown up, day after day, even when it felt slow, even when no one else saw the point. So here's what I'd tell you. If we were sitting in a cafe right now, coffee cups between us, don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the big opportunity. Don't wait until you feel ready. Because honestly, you might never feel ready. Start now. Even if it's messy, even if you think you're too old, too busy, too bad at languages. because the day will come when you do need it. And when that day comes, I want you to be the one who smiles, takes a deep breath, and says, "Yes, I can. Your 4 months start today." And I'll be cheering for you every step of the way.